Welcome to TV Africa News. This is Africa Today. My name is Najuma Luima. But first are the headlines. Government set to begin countrywide vaccination of COVID-19. DP challenges government to address abduction and human rights violations. South Sudanese military generals die of COVID-19. And in sports, Hippos storm AFCON Under-20 final with a majestic result over Tunisia. Now the news in detail. Government is set to begin the countrywide vaccination of the COVID-19 pandemic on the 10th of March 2021 after the launch of the campaign on 8th March 2021. This was revealed by the Minister of Health, Dr. Jane Ruth Acheng, at the Ministry of Health offices in Kampala. Our reporter Nalugo has more.
Addressing journalists at the Ministry offices in Kampala, the Minister of Health, Jane Ruth Acheng, revealed that government will receive 864,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccines on Friday, the 5th of March 2021, to begin the vaccination of COVID-19 in Uganda. The vaccination is scheduled to be launched on 8th March 2021 and vaccination will begin on 10th March 2021. Uganda will receive donations of the COVID-19 vaccines, which include 3,552,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccines from the COVAX facility, the Government of India and the People's Republic of China to cater for a population of 49.4%. The priority persons to be vaccinated first are the health workers, since they are at the front line of fighting the pandemic. The vaccination is not eligible to persons under the age of 18, as advised by experts from the World Health Organization, and this explains why the targeted population readjusted from the earlier communication by the Ministry of Health.
You are aware, the vaccine requires 8 weeks, which is 56 days, or 12 weeks, which is over 3 months. So we must have records so that we can give those who have gotten their first dose vaccines. Without records and without traceability, it will be very difficult. Hence the need for the national ID numbers to be used. And then, of course, there are those who will come of age in the course of the vaccination. So we also have to be cognizant of that group, who are currently about 17 and a half, who will eventually become 18 and will be required to be vaccinated.
Government has kicked off the sensitization campaign with effect from today, which will run on 40 radio stations and 5 television stations and at community level. However, the minister emphasized that the vaccination is free of charge and not compulsory. Nalgo Muyingo, Africa Today.
Moving on, the Democratic Party spokesperson Opiyo Enoch has told the press that the party condemns illegal actions of abducting and incarcerating Ugandans, which is being done by security forces. The address was at party offices at City Hall in Kampala. Our reporter Nahabwe has more.
Mr. Opiyo Enoch said that the party is going to use the IPOD summit meeting to challenge the government in NRM, the ruling party, and also a number of issues of abduction, violation, and human rights, among others.
As DP, we are extremely concerned with the reported cases of abductions, kidnaps, unlawful arrests, illegal detentions, torture and disappearances targeting opposition activists. These illegal activities are being blamed on the security organs of the Uganda state. To date, scores of opposition activists are in detention and face charges before the court-martial, which continues to deny them bail without any lawful excuse. As a party committed to non-violence, rule of law and constitutionalism, we condemn these illegal acts.
DP condemns the acts of appeals to President Museveni, who is also the chairperson of NRM, to address the matter. DP also challenged government on the ongoing campaign of reopening of the education institutes that were closed due to COVID-19 pandemic to set up a loan scheme for parents to acquire the loans.
The Democratic Party notes with concern that many parents are unable to take their children back to school because of pecuniary difficulties arising from the COVID-19 pandemic. Education being the foundation of transformation and development in developing countries, the government should have focused on, among others, giving out interest-free loans to Ugandans whose businesses were crippled by the pandemic. Now that that was not done, many Ugandans will not be able to support their children in school, let alone failing to take them back.
Away from that, the High Court has ordered National Council for Higher Education to grant a provisional license to UNICAF University, a decision that has left the regulatory body in uncomfortable position, arguing that the technical requirements they raised have not been addressed. We have more.
NCHE Executive Director Professor Mary Akwakwol informed UNICAF management on August 13th last year that they had failed to meet the minimum standards required to be given a provisional license to start a university and would have to wait another 2 years for a review. The council cited UNICAF failure to prove ownership of the premises intended to house the university, lack of Kampala Capital City Authority approval to make alterations to the premises, and inappropriate library space. UNICAF was registered in 2017 as a company limited by shares to establish a private university which would offer online higher education. In August 2017, they were granted a letter of interim authority to start processes of starting a university. On September 18, 2020, UNICAF petitioned the High Court at the February 18, 2021. Justice Michael Elubu ordered NCHE to grant the university the operating license. The judge dismissed the allegation against Professor Akwakwol that she had abused her office by refusing to grant UNICAF a provisional license. He cited failure by NCHE to sit as a full council to determine the fate of UNICAF's application for an operation license.
Let's take a quick break. We will be right back. A group of nearly 300 girls who were kidnapped from a school in northwestern Nigeria last week have been released. Let's take a look.
Police say the girls were abducted by unidentified gunmen from their boarding school in Jangebe, Zamfara State on Friday and taken to a forest. Dozens of the girls were seen gathered at the government building in Zamfara after they were taken there in a fleet of minibuses. The action said 279 girls have been freed, adding that a figure given last week by police that 317 had been kidnapped was no longer accurate. The authorities said group's release was secured through negotiations between government officials and the abductors. President Buhari said he felt overwhelming joy at the news of the girls' release.
Away from that, 5 independently elected investigators have turned their attention to former President Donald Trump on abuse of office and attempts to overturn the 2020 election results. Kachanchu has more.
Trump is now facing inquiries run by elected officials from Georgia to Washington, with only their constituents to answer to. Most are Democrats, but one key investigation was launched by a Georgia Republican who has faced heavy criticism from Trump since the election. The investigation is on his attempts to overturn the 2020 election results and to stir up his supporters with baseless claims of fraud until they stormed the US Capitol, only added to his legal problems. In New York, investigators recently got their hands on Trump's tax returns and have bolstered their team with a prosecutor who specializes in complex financial cases. In Georgia, another prosecutor plans to begin requesting subpoenas from a grand jury as early as this week. TV Africa News, Kachanchu Mutabazi reporting.
Let's once again take a very quick short break. We will be right back. Welcome back. You're still watching TV Africa News, the right to know. In our health news today, the South Sudanese military has announced the death of 3 generals who succumbed to COVID-19. Our reporter Nahabwe has more on this report.
The dead, identified as David Manyont Barak, Elijah Alia Ayom, and Mabio Market. The military said burials will be organized by a committee in collaboration with the families of the deceased. Chief of Defense Forces General Johnson Juma Okot has urged all soldiers to adhere to COVID-19 safety measures, according to the military spokesperson, Brigadier General Santo Dominic Chol. Over the last 2 weeks, 2 prominent scholars at the University of Juba succumbed to COVID-19, raising the number of deaths from the pandemic to 95. In total, 8,144 coronavirus cases have been confirmed. The Ministry of Health and the World Health Organization say South Sudan is witnessing a surge in cases due to poor adherence to safety measures like social distancing and the wearing of face masks.
In our business news today, the Bank Lending Survey has revealed that majority of the banks expect their lending rates to remain broadly unchanged, with a bias towards decrease, reflecting a relatively lower central bank rate. Katende has more.
According to Bank of Uganda's Monetary Policy Report, for February 2021, commercial banks' lending rate on shilling loans averaged 18.8% in quarter to December 2020, down from 20.2% in quarter to September 2020, partly reflecting a lag in monetary policy transmission mechanism. The report says lending rates on forex loans rose to an average of 6.1% from 5.7% in the same period. Private sector credit by financial corporation banks and UDB grew by 10.2% in December 2020, up from 9.5% in previous quarter, supported partly by gradual economic recovery and lower cost of borrowing. It adds that the value on loan applications and approvals increased to shillings 4.9 trillion and shillings 2.9 billion on the quarter to December 2020, from shillings 4.2 trillion and shillings 2.7 billion in the quarter to September 2020, respectively. According to records in December 2020, total structured loans amounted to shillings 7.9 trillion, of which Uganda shillings 4.8 trillion remain outstanding. Katende Chawasinga reporting.
And in sports, Uganda under-20 team, the Hippos, are in the final of the Toto AFCON under-20 after a well-drilled 4-1 win over Tunisia yesterday night. Kachanchu reports.
Before losing 3-0 away in Ghana during the second leg. TV Africa News, Kachanchu Mtabazi reporting.
Now, before we end our news bulletin today, let's take a recap of our top stories. Government set to begin countrywide vaccination of COVID-19.